My name is Chris Colvard. I work for Ubiquity Press. I'm a white male in my 30s with sideburns, and I'm sitting in front of a wall with my kids' artwork. Today, my title of my presentation is DOIing more with Hyrax. To start by asking the question, which I did when I started at Ubiquity earlier this year, is what is a DOI? And a DOI is a digital object identifier. It just is kind of a persistent identifier that can point to just about anything. Here's an example of it where the part before the slash is kind of a unique prefix that can be assigned to, say, an institution, and the part after the slash being kind of the identifier within that institution. There are a number of registration agencies that are kind of specific to particular knowledge domains, which will be the place that those DOIs kind of live in. But outside of those, you just use the DOI and it's resolvable, and you can get to the object itself. Each registrar has some peculiarities where different metadata schemes or potentially having statuses for the DOIs. So within the Samvera community, there's been a lot of work in the past on kind of integrating DOIs, making them available on works. A lot of that's been done within specific applications and not quite so much in shared components. There was an effort before called Hydra Remote Identifier, but it seems like it maybe didn't entirely catch on. So when I started work on creating a Hyrax plugin, I looked at the implementation that had already been done for by Ubiquity Press for the British Library's Hyku application. And they had, the British Library works pretty closely with DataCite. And so they had some strong vision for what features they wanted. And the work where I come into this is to try to extract that out and share it back into the community as part of the Advancing Hyku alignment work. So what use cases it has seems to be matching and greater than the use cases that I saw in previous work. So beyond just creating a DOI and updating its metadata when work is updated in the repository, also kind of data site specific stuff of being able to create a draft DOI before a work's been deposited. This would be to say, kind of get a DOI and be able to embed it within a PDF that you might be attaching to a work. The other feature that they use a lot is autofilling the deposit form if there is a pre-existing DOI for an object that you're newly bringing into the repository, but it exists outside. And that will just save you a lot of time because sometimes those DOIs have some pretty extensive metadata. So the first place I started when doing this work was looking at those prior implementations and talking with Tamsin about what makes sense to live within Hyrax. And we decided that using his implementation when he worked at DCE on Mahonia would be a good place to start. So I brought that into Hyrax. It's really just infrastructure. It doesn't do anything by default. It's just there if you want to use it. And there's kind of an example there. If a kind of data site registrar class registrar class were created, you could use it to mint a DOI and or mint a external identifier. This is not specific to DOIs, and assign it to a work. So as this as a starting point, I built on top of that and came up with this Hyrax plugin, which can be, after it's installed, can be enabled per work type, because maybe not all work types you want DOIs on. And what that will, if you install it and turn it on for work type, what you get is something like this in a screenshot, a DOI tab where there's basically just a single field for a DOI. This screenshot's for a data site a DOI implementation, where there's a button there to create a draft DOI. and a place to choose between what status you would like the DOI to be when it is minted. Then when the form is saved, if there's not a DOI attached to the work, it will create one in the background if you've selected that option. And it will push, it'll crosswalk the metadata from the work using a DataCite gem called Bolognese. And we'll push that out to DataCite in this example. That metadata crosswalking happens the other way as well. If you put in a pre-existing DOI and click the autofill form button, Bolognese will read from any source that it is able to. So registrars other than DataCite, so Crossref, and some other registrars, you'll be able to pull down that and with the gem, crosswalk it to metadata, and using some unobtrusive JavaScript will populate the form. Some DataCite specific features include, as I said, the statuses, but also some warning on save if you don't have all of the properties filled in that DataCite expects. It's just a warning, and it will, the gem, the Hyrax-doi will put in placeholder values if you don't have those. So it's there. I put it in Samvera Lab, and would love for people to try it out, to give lots of feedback on how the metadata is crosswalking. If you want improvements to that, it's also, you're able to override it within any particular work type, how you want to do the crosswalking. There's only an implementation for DataCite right now, but I'd love to see other registrars if there's use cases for them. We'd really love feedback on the flow of it, and if within the UI there should be improvements done. And next steps for it is building out the ability to set the configuration from within the admin dashboard, since it's just in initializers right now. And within Hyku, bringing it in, I did an initial implementation for Ubiquity right now that provides configuration within a tenant edit view. And so future work will be pulling that out and making it be available within Hyku. It's been included in the Hyku roadmap to, I believe, be available by default, but maybe not turned on. So please check it out on GitHub and Samvera Labs. And I'm really looking forward to any feedback and how we can make this feature more available and easier to use so you don't have to write your own implementation. Thank you.